Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strelko. He is a man with a pod. He's a fan. He is Adam Eaton. He joins me this week. Welcome in.
Fan with a pod. Good to be back, Trace. Good to be talking UCF sports. Good to be talking UCF football again. Glad to have all of you watching, listening, contributing. Can't wait to get the show on the road. Trace, football season is back. For those of you NFL fans, you're not missing anything. The kickoff has now moved back to 8:40, so you can catch much of our show, then switch over and watch the opening kickoff for the NFL. So we got you covered. Don't go anywhere. We got a ton of UCF sports talk coming up.
You mentioned the Knights 1-0 after a 57-3 win over New Hampshire. All the talk, though, right, is on the play of quarterback KJ Jefferson. I think it's fair to say most fans were expecting a little crisper performance from the Arkansas transfer. As you've had opportunity, you've talked with Mike on the podcast, and you've had time to think about it. A week now removed from that home opening win. Adam, where are you on this Knights team after 1 week?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with quarterback play, right? We might as well just address as Dally said, the hog in the room in this conversation, right? I think KJ's performance was uneven. I don't think there's any other way to spin that, to sugarcoat that. I think he owned up to that. I think Coach Malzahn owned up to that. I'm not smart enough to know why things like this happen. I think there are excuses. There are reasons. You can look at the film. You can look at some of the things that happened in the second half and maybe see a path for this improving. But again, the reality is I think we all had really high expectations for KJ. And unfortunately, I don't think he lived up to his own standard, let alone ours, right? So that is what it is. I think it's a little too early to panic, right? It's the first game of the season. There's a lot of nerves, a lot of rust. You know, perhaps the scheme was still something he's getting used to. He's getting used to new receivers. And so I think all of that can be factored in. And let's just kind of take where that goes from that standpoint. So let's put that aside, Trace. Let's put that in the what's in the question box for right now. But let's focus on the rest of the team. Running room looks solid. The defense played lights out. We had good linebacker play. Deshaun Pace was all over the field. Braden Marshall had a great game. You know, Colton Boomer got off the schneid barely. Maybe one of those kicks didn't go in. We can talk about that later. But everything else really hit on all cylinders. So you take away the KJ and the quarterback play. I think you have to be impressed with what you saw. Again, I don't know what to make of week one opponents. New Hampshire, a reputable program, but obviously not anywhere near the level of UCF. So maybe there's some factorization there. But I think overall, quarterback play, uneven. I think everything else, if you're a Knight fan, you walked away saying, okay, there's some definite growth from what we saw last year.
I asked in my big poll question of the week to grade the Knights quarterbacks in that week one win over New Hampshire. 67% D or F, 30% C. Hey, who are you? 3%. Drop it in the comments if you graded a B here. And I didn't even put A as a choice when KJ Jefferson is 7 of 14 with a terrible interception. And Curry Brown didn't look that great. I mean, C, I think, is a grade on a curve.
Yeah, I think, a nightmarish Jay actually with a good comment here. We saw bumpy quarterback play across college football in week one. Think about this for a second with a hat tip to Christian Simmons for this fun little nugget. If you think about the Big Four in Florida, KJ Jefferson probably had the second best performance of any quarterback in the state of Florida, right, this last week, right? And that's Cam Ward, and you saw how bad DJ Uiagalelei and Graham Mertz played. So I guess it could be a lot worse. But look, I think the reality is, yeah, the quarterback play was uneven. I think Gus knows that. I think the quarterbacks know that. We won the football game. You see how balanced this running back room is. Yes, I understand you said to yourself, if we do this against teams in the Big 12, we're going to get slaughtered. But we didn't play a Big 12 team this week. So let's let the process play out. Let's see how the guys grow from week one to week two. Coach Malzahn is legendary, Trace, at every presser for saying the biggest growth you make is from game one to game two. Let's see what that growth looks like. Let's see. The jury's still out. Let's not start, to borrow a JP Gilbert. Let's not grabbing our pitchforks just yet. But I do think there's cause for okay, that wasn't what I expected, but perhaps it can all be cleaned up in week two.
You got to love college football when you're disappointed with a 54-point victory. But again, it was mainly just about KJ Jefferson. We heard from head coach Gus Malzahn on Monday and a couple of players as well. And one bite that has just stood out to me from Coach Malzahn is his perception of KJ. Let's hear from Coach.
It was a combination. I mean, it's his first rodeo. Anytime that you got a new offense with new teammates, we didn't do a great job around him early either. We hit Johnny right down the seam. We didn't hit him. We overthrew him, and we had a bust up front in our protection. We'd had a chance to get off to a better start with that. But, he didn't play his best the first quarter. He knows that, and he'll respond. And second half, he settled down. You could see that, and that was good. And he'll get more and more comfortable each game out. And the great thing about KJ, he's a veteran. He's been there and done that. And so really look forward to watching him play this weekend.
So it's his first rodeo, Adam, but he's a veteran. We've heard now for a while, spring practice, preseason practice, that he's a veteran with a lot of starts. I mean, I guess two things can be true at the same time. It's his debut as a Knight. I guess that's part of it, right? Is that Gus Malzahn has been talking about how much football he has played, how experienced he is. So the expectation was heightened that we'd see a crisper performance in game one. So.
Yeah, you grammar police, right? With the first rodeo and veteran, I hear you. But look, it is his first rodeo in this system, right? And we were talking to Coach Lounsbury before we came on air about there's some newness here, right? There's maybe newness in blocking schemes and terminology protection. So there is some newness here, and some of that stuff has to get worked out. So, you know, it's his first rodeo kind of experiencing the phenomenon of being the UCF quarterback. But in terms of, you know, the lights shouldn't be too bright for him, right? There shouldn't be a moment he faces where he says, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. There shouldn't be an opportunity for something to happen where he goes, what do I do now? Like, those things should be relatively in check. But in terms of, you know, what's my hot route? What am I calling out here? You know, what tunnel do I go out of? Like, where am I at? Like, this is all new to him in some respects. Like, does this receiver like the ball sort of higher? Does this person like a back shoulder? I think some of those things still kind of will be worked out on the field.
You know, it was a topic we discussed on this week's Around the Kingdom about the value of scheduling these FCS opponents. I think there's great value in it. I think it is basically a preseason game, and now it steps up a notch as the Knights welcome in Sam Houston State Saturday in the Bounce House at 6:30. Sam Houston with a convincing 34-14 win against Rice. Again, a different caliber of opponent than New Hampshire. A little bit more of a challenge for the Knights. They are more than 3 touchdown favorites. UCF should win. If not, then there's reason to panic. And I think we're looking for growth across all phases of this team, again, especially KJ.
Yeah, look, the good news is you now have one game of film. You can go back and understand what you can work on, where you can get better as a team, where you can actually make those strides, make that growth. You know, there was a chatter this week on social media. I don't know where it came from, Trace, but there was some sort of chatter that people were saying that, you know, UCF was saying, watch out for Sam Houston. We could lose. I don't think that was the commentary. I think the commentary was Sam Houston is not New Hampshire, right? They pose a bit of a different challenge. They're probably a better team than New Hampshire. So UCF is going to face a better opponent. We may give up 10 points, 13 points, 17 points. It's not cause for concern because Sam Houston is probably better than New Hampshire. But to your point, it's all about what the Knights can do in week 2 and can they take those corrections, right? This is the growth, you know, Gus keeps talking about and becoming that, you know, that power program. You know, can you have some stumbles in week 1 and can you go out in the field and make that change, make that challenge in week 2? There's a ton of veterans on this team, Trace. We've talked about this a ton. Gus prioritized bringing in, you know, players that have had experience. So to a man, there's a lot of experience on this team. There's a lot of leadership in this team. Can that all gel together, come together and say, okay, hey, here's week 1. Here's what we have to do. Let's go out in week 2 and sort of prove something differently on the field. Guess we'll find out Saturday at 6:30.
Well, and a lot of those transfers made an impact. Deshaun Pace, notable amongst them. And some you didn't hear a whole lot about because of the quality of play of New Hampshire, right? So we still don't know a whole lot about the run defense because New Hampshire wasn't doing much running. They weren't doing much of anything, so they weren't really challenged. So I think that's the value of seeing a stepped-up opponent. Let's talk a little bit more about last week's game. Turn the page to this week's game with veteran coach. He is Paul Lounsbury. He joins us now. Coach, welcome back into Sons of UCF Live.
Thank you, Trace. Hi, Adam.
Hello, Coach.
It's good to be
Coach.
back.
Good to have you back. Coach, we talked about it on Around the Kingdom this week, the value of playing an FCS opponent. I feel like the Knights needed a game like that to begin to gel as a team. You know, they've been hitting each other in practice, and now it's hit somebody else and getting to that chemistry and getting to know one another. So I think there's value in playing a team like New Hampshire.
As a coach, I always wanted to play an easier opponent for the first game because there's so many things you do find out about your team in that first game. But I was really pleased the way we played against New Hampshire. When you look at it offensively, we didn't have a penalty. Defensively, we only had 2, and both of those were questionable. One was an inadvertent face mask, and one was a late hit that I thought was not that late. And then we had the delay of game on a field goal, and I think that might have been more of an official's administration than anything else. So when you look at the big picture, that's a remarkable accomplishment, not having any penalties on the offense in the first game. And there were no dumb penalties anywhere on the field for us, I don't think. I mean, you could say the delay of game, but the field goal was a dumb penalty. But like I said, I'm not sure how that happened. So when you evaluate everything, and I will tell you this, KJ Jefferson, while he didn't throw it as sharply as we like, he ran the ball extremely well, and he ran that team well. He got them to the line of scrimmage. He made the right calls at the line of scrimmage, and he did a lot of good things. So your grading system was, if you were just grading his throwing, maybe a C. But I think he did better than that in the overall picture of things.
Wait, are you one of those 3% with the B?
I would be, because I think that he had a lot of other things going on in that game that he handled extremely well. If you're just talking about his throwing, C is fine with me. But I think he did a lot of other things in that game that he needed to do, and leadership is a big part of that.
If not for his performance, if you looked at the other stats in this game, if he had a couple more completions, looked a little crisper, what would there be to complain about, right? So we do have his performance to pick apart. What surprises you most about what you saw? We go back a week or so when we were previewing this game. We were looking to see what he was going to do. We expected the running game to be proficient, and it was. What surprises you about how he looked in this first week?
I don't know that I was totally surprised. I did expect him to be a little sharper throwing early in the game than what he was. But, like I was telling you earlier, we are human beings, and you don't know what's going on sometimes. And it takes here's a guy that had to come from Arkansas into a new environment with a new playbook, new teammates. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and everybody's expecting him to be the guy. He's a team captain. He's the quarterback, and we may be asking him to do some things he hasn't really had a lot of time to do before. And I'm talking about in the passing game and protection game. But we only threw the ball 14 times, and that's not a real good sample size to make any decisions on how well he can throw it, because I've seen him throw it really well in practice, and he can do it. And he did it in the game at the end, in the second half of the game. He threw it very well, I thought.
Well, let me ask you about that real quick. The 14 passes, UCF was successful in running the ball. We knew that they could do that. Was there value in allowing him to throw a little bit more and work out some issues?
I don't know. I don't know what the mindset was on the coaching staff. I thought it was fine the way it was. Why give yourself a chance to get worse? Go run the ball when you can run it and get that mindset right, So to me, I thought the coaches did a great job of calling the game, and just I thought the players did a great job of executing. And defensively, we stopped that run. We snuffed them on the run. And is it New Hampshire couldn't run it, or that we were that good? I don't know for sure, but I think we're pretty darn good. We're very athletic on defense and fast.
Coach, staying on KJ for just one more second. So obviously, to your point, not a great throwing performance. What do you do this week in practice with him? How do you sort of work out the kinks there? How do you sort of work out maybe the challenges there as a coach this last week in practice?
I don't think you do a whole lot differently. You practice what you're going to call in the game, and you throw what you're going to throw in the game, and you try to make it as clear as you can to him. You go back over all the protections with him and all the calls that have to be made, and you just keep practicing and try to hone your craft. And I've seen him perform very well in practice this week as well. So I'm not concerned about KJ. I think he's going to perform very well.
I mean, you've seen more football than Trace and I have ever combined. Coach, when you saw KJ's throws, was it lack of timing? Was it just not on the same page as a receiver? Did you kind of catch anything as you watched it live to kind of say, hey, timing's off, or that was just a bad read? What did you kind of assess with some of the throws that I think had us all scratching our heads?
Well, the interception, I don't really know, because it looked like he just threw it straight to him. So I don't know. And I obviously didn't watch the film. I saw a little bit of clips on the sideline on the pad. Especially when they had the protection breakdown early. I saw that. And that could have been a factor in KJ's not feeling as protected as he normally would either. I thought a couple of the throws he tried to aim a little bit. He knew he could get it there. He kind of changed his throwing motion a little bit, and that's a kind of a normal human thing to do, But I thought, again, in the second half, I thought he threw the ball well. I didn't think he had any issues really throwing it in the second half. So I have confidence in KJ and in the coaches. There was a lot of pressure on him, actually, and he's dealt with pressure before, but this is a new kind of pressure because it's a new place.
Coach, let's stay on offense for just 1 second, Coach. There's a fan myth, like game one, week one, you're playing a non-conference opponent. How much of the playbook do you think is available in week one? Is there any credence to the offensive staff maybe trying to keep it kind of vanilla, very, very basic, so you don't show anything to future opponents, especially conference opponents down the road?
Yeah, I think there is some of that, but you have things in your arsenal ready to go in case you need them. And if you don't need them, sometimes you save them. So I think that happened in this game. I think there were a lot of things we didn't have to show that we probably had ready to show. And there were a couple things he probably showed because he wanted our opponents to work on them, so that would cost our opponents preparation time in the future. And we may not run them ever again. I don't know. But he wanted to show them that we had this and they needed to work on that just to disrupt their time on defense, having to take time to work on certain things. So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
During Monday's presser, Coach Malzahn talked about the tablets and how he thinks it's going to lead to a better quality of football. What'd you think of it as you saw it? And can you imagine if that had been around when you were coaching?
Oh, man, it's awesome. I think you have to be careful, though, not to put everything on the tablet. I think you still have to approach the game if you're coaching on the sideline, like I did and like Coach Hand is. I think I relied a lot on notes on each play. I would take notes on something that I saw or something that I wanted to ask the players when they came off, and I would continue to do that. And then when you do that, now you've got the tablet to actually see it as well. So I think it's awesome. I mean, video is the best teaching tool a coach has, and now you've got it on the sideline and you can review. That's how they showed that first series when they busted the protection. They got that straight right away. So it's easier to make adjustments, I think, sometimes.
450 plus rushing yards. The running backs don't do that without the play of the offensive line. Grade the offensive line across the board, and their protection of KJ and opening up holes for the running backs.
Other than the busted protection, I think that was the only bust in protection that we had. I think the offensive line got A-pluses across the board. They were moving that line of scrimmage a lot, and they protected well, except for the one bust, and that was simply two guys pulling that only one should have been pulling. So it was a you-me call, and they got that mixed up. But that happens too. I mean, there are going to be mistakes made, and I think we have to, as human beings, we have to know that we're going to make mistakes. We just got to take the next step and move on and correct it and try not to make that same mistake again. But I really thought the O-line played very, very well.
Coach, on defense, Deshaun Pace was all over the place. He had a nice interception, was kind of attacking to the football. What kind of difference is he going to make for this UCF defense throughout the season?
Oh, it's huge. He and Ethan Barr both, they were filling the holes like crazy. And the defensive line, I thought, played very well too, to allow guys like Pace and Barr to make those plays. And Pace is a great player. And Braden Marshall had a great game. Several of the safeties made great plays. I thought our corners shut them down all night. So I thought defensively it was an A all the way across the board for everybody. I was really impressed with the defensive line too. They ate up those blockers well. So I'm excited about – I hope that it just wasn't that New Hampshire was bad. I don't think they were really bad, but I think we're good. But you always have that doubt in the back of your mind until you play somebody is good,
Coach, how much of a weapon is Xavier Townsend going to be on special teams? I mean, he was electric with the ball in his hands and had a lot of good runs. Obviously, didn't get a chance to break one in this game, but how electric can he be? How important is that third phase of the game when you have a weapon like a Xavier Townsend that could break one or can really get you good field position from an offensive standpoint?
It was huge. He didn't break one for a touchdown, but he had about 3 of them that were big run backs. So I was really pleased with that aspect of the game, and we blocked a punt that was huge. And Boomer was perfect. The execution of the snap and the hold and the protection, even though the protection on the field goal, those guys were blowing our guards up pretty good. They were putting 2 and 3 guys on one and trying to blow them up, but they did a good job of protecting too. So yeah, I'm excited about our special teams too. And that's unusual to have that good a performance on game one sometimes.
You know, Xavier was asked about the use of the tablets and evaluating special teams, but he's got to run right back out, play wide receiver.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have opportunity to study that. You mentioned seeing practice. What was different about this week of practice than the week leading up to the first game?
I think our team is more confident. I think that first game we were so amped up to play somebody different. I think that was kind of in the front of everybody's mind, and I think it still is. But I think now this week the difference is they know that Sam Houston is an FBS team and has a good football team, good enough to beat us if we don't play our best. Now, if we play our best, Coach Hand said this today. He and I were talking. If we play our best and they play their best, we're going to win the game. But we have to play our best to make sure that happens. And I think that's the focus that the coaching staff had this week. They're not going to let our team lighten up or ease up at all. Not when there's a chance that we could lose a game. So they're gonna be as honed as possible, and our coaching staff emphasized that. And that's probably the biggest difference.
Of course, you'll take what the defense gives you, right? But is there a certain number of passes you might be looking for KJ to throw, or are you just looking for the quality of the play?
Quality. I don't think. To me, it never mattered, and all the coaches I coached with, it didn't matter if we ran it, if we threw it, unless we were trying to make a statement to somebody later on our schedule that after we had a game already wrapped up that we might want to do a couple things to give them headaches to have to prepare for. So, but other than that, no, there was never a number that we had to have of runs or passes. And we always were, and I think this coaching staff's the same way. If it's working, run it again, So I think it works.
Coach, Gus is legendary for saying you make the most progress as a team from week 1 to week 2. Why is that? Like, what is it about that you think lends that to be true, that you will progress the most you will from 1 to 2?
I think it's because you've been going all preseason against yourselves, and you kind of get in a rut going against the same players every day. And now you're going against somebody different, and you see a new look. So you might have had some mistakes because you were in a rut kind of before. So now how well the players adjust to that change and the speed of that kind of game when you're going against somebody else's best players all the time. That I think is what gives you the advantage from week 1 to week 2 of getting better, because now you see who can adjust, you see what players can adjust, and the players see for themselves how they have to adjust.
Coach, there are a lot of tough jobs in this world, right? A lot of really hard positions, maybe no harder position than the UCF running back coach, because how are you going to decide how to divvy up the carries between what we're now calling Mount Rushmore with the 4 running backs at UCF? How in the heck are they going to decide how to keep all these guys engaged and who's going to get more carries and touches?
I think they have a general outline of who wants how many times they want guys to touch the ball, but that's fluid because a lot depends on how how a guy's feeling if he gets a little tweak injury or something like that, or what's happening with the opponent. You sometimes one guy has a beat on, that it's just harder to tackle for some reason. So I think they have a plan in general, an outline of sharing the wealth a little bit, but I think it's flexible to allow them to go with the hot hand as well.
Got lost a little bit with the score and the talk about KJ, but as best we know, the Knights got out of this one without any significant injuries, and that's important when you're facing an opponent like New Hampshire as well.
As far as I know, yeah, there was nothing serious, and I didn't notice anybody, missing. So I'm excited about this game with Stephen F. Austin because it'll be
Sam Houston. You're just
whoever.
You keep calling him Steve.
Right.
I love him.
Both. Let's go.
Sam Houston. You're right. I'm sorry, but it's the next step up, and the next step after that will be TCU, and I like the gradual steps that we're taking with this schedule. We're fortunate to have that, I think.
Coach, I give you an A+ for this week. 1-0 again this week on the Sons of UCF Live. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a second win for the Knights, building on the first and looking ahead to that
absolutely
road opener in the Big 12 at TCU. Coach Lounsbury, thank you for being with us on Sons of UCF Live.
Thank you, Trace. Thank you, Adam. You guys do a fantastic job. I appreciate you.
You're the best.
Thank you, Coach. All right, Adam. Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin. Whatever names of any players you want.
Well, Stephen F. Austin won like 77-0 last week, so maybe we don't want to play them. I don't really. Although they played somebody called like America's team or something. I don't even know.
I want to congratulate our friend UCF Mike, 98th this week in the pool track.
Well, that doesn't feel like congratulations. I'm not gonna lie to you. That doesn't feel like
no. He finished ahead of like 11 people and 17 that didn't turn in their picks. I mean, that's you don't want to scoff at that kind of thing. He's looking up at you and I. He likes to say I like to brag early on in the season. It's because I'm ahead of him in the standings. I may change my tune later on.
Didn't feel like recognition, but okay.
No, I'm congratulating him. 98th. Tough. If you looked at the games this week, another tough slate of games to pick because of some of these wide point spreads. Let's hear from our buddy Jeff Allen in the Big 12 Minute.
The Big 12 went 14-2 in the first week of the season in non-conference play. Another 16 games are on tap for week 2. Here's how the schedule breaks out. Tomorrow night, BYU travels to SMU, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Saturday, Kansas State pays a visit to Tulane, 12 noon on ESPN. Cincinnati hosts Pittsburgh, 12 noon on ESPN2. Oklahoma State welcomes Arkansas, 12 noon on ABC. In a non-conference game featuring conference mates, Baylor battles rival Utah at 3:30 on Fox. Iowa State and Iowa play their rivalry game. That'll be 3:30 on CBS. West Virginia entertains Albany, 6 o'clock on ESPN+. Kansas squares off with Illinois, 7 o'clock on FS1. Colorado visits Nebraska, 7:30 on NBC. Houston makes the trip to Oklahoma, 7:45 on the SEC Network. TCU hosts LIU, 8 o'clock on ESPN+. Texas Tech travels to face Pac-2 member Washington State, 10 o'clock on Fox. Arizona hosts Northern Arizona, 10 o'clock on ESPN+. Arizona State welcomes Mississippi State, 10:30 on ESPN. Also in the Saturday slate at the Bounce House, UCF versus Sam Houston State at 6:30 on ESPN+. Let's hope we're not gnashing our teeth on Sunday morning about quarterback play and feel good about our chances opening Big 12 play next week at TCU. With your Big 12 Minute, I'm Jeff Allen.
Adam, is LIU Long Island University? Is that what we believe that LIU to be?
I think so. I'm sorry. I was losing it over this comment. The old Howard Stern WNBC. I assume so. Yeah, I assume so.
LIU. If this league continues to add teams, we're going to have a 5-minute block of Jeff Allen reviewing the games on the weekend.
I feel like we could start our own college at this point, Terry. Should we just have like a Suns University where we just, we field the squad every year?
I like that.
Mike's the offensive coordinator. We've got people. We've got options.
I can count on him for a week or two until he gets bored with the project. Let's get to know a little bit more about not Stephen F. Austin, but Sam Houston State with our buddy Steve Helwick, SB Nation Underdog Dynasty. He's on the road somewhere. Where are you heading, Steve? You're always going somewhere.
Yes, I'm headed to the SMU BYU game tomorrow. I'll be on the coverage of that Friday live, and then on Saturday I'll just travel further north to another place Jeff just updated us on, and that was the Houston Oklahoma game. So 2 Big 12 games on the docket for me this weekend.
Let's start with the hard hitting questions. How's your jump shot? Last we saw you at UCF, you were hooping it up a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie, I've had a bit of a rough week with my jumper recently, but the paint never fails me. So my jump shot may be in and out, but I always have some good moves in the post. I have a good spin move, really tough to stop most of the time. So I think doing well in the post is where it's at right now for me.
Thank you for that update. All right, let's talk Sam Houston. What surprised you about a 34-14 win over Rice that put Sam Houston out to a 1-0 record this season?
To be honest, everything about it. Last year, Sam Houston team, they started 0-8. They were a team that could not figure out how to win. They were on the losing side of so many one-score games. They were 0-5, I think, there were 5 one-score games that they lost last year. And they were to opponents like Liberty, who was quality, and then they were opponents to FIU, who was not a quality opponent last year. But Sam Houston just played to the level of opponent and couldn't figure out how to finish those games. So to go out there and have their biggest margin of victory since joining the FBS against the Rice team, which Rice beat Houston last year. They returned most of their starters, 20 of their top 22 on defense. Sam Houston went on the road, punched them in the mouth, and came out of that game with a 20-point win. And they just looked good in all facets of the game. They have a really good quarterback, I think, at Hunter Watson, who was a JUCO national champion last year. We didn't know who was going to start that game against Rice, but Hunter Watson came out, and he ended up winning CUSA Player of the Week. And he does what Sam Houston really likes to do under Casey Keeler on offense. And it's kind of an air raid philosophy, but you have to have a quarterback that likes to run the ball. So he's kind of a continuation of what they had in Keegan Shoemaker last year, except Casey Keeler believes Watson has a higher ceiling. So that was impressive. And then defensively, they forced Rice to 7-3 and outs. They looked really good on that. And they have really good linebacker play. Still could use more in the pass rush, but their linebacking core is really good, and they stopped Rice's rushing attack, which was led by a pretty star running back in Dean Connors.
Well, they face 4 tough running backs in UCF this week, 450-plus rushing yards. Let's talk about the defense a little bit more. How do you think they match up against the Knights? That is a tough task, tougher than Rice.
Oh, for sure. And especially with UCF. I think UCF is the deepest running back core in the country. I mean, you have 2 of the top 8 rushing leaders from last year in RJ Harvey and Penny Boone. And then you add Johnny Richardson and Miles Montgomery, who could be #1 running backs for good programs across the country. And UCF did exactly what I expected in the run game against New Hampshire. So I think that UCF will be fine in the run game, even though Sam Houston did give Rice a little pushback in that regard because UCF's just a different animal there. And I think I have the same concern with the passing game that most UCF fans do right now after KJ Jefferson's 7 of 14 performance against New Hampshire, where they couldn't get much going early on, especially on third downs. I think they finished 4 at 11 there. So yes, I am a little concerned about what UCF is capable of accomplishing in the pass game, because not only are they breaking in a new starting quarterback in Gus's system, but also they really need a #2 receiver to step up alongside Kobe Hudson. So I think that Sam Houston could get some victories against UCF in the pass game, but overall UCF's run game is going to be too much for them to handle, I think. And on the other side of the ball, I think Sam Houston, they're going to provide a lot more offensive push than New Hampshire did. I know the Bearcats struggled offensively against their non-conference competition last year in Air Force, BYU, and Houston, scoring a combined 10 points in those 3 games. But I think this year's Bearcat team is a little better, and they're a little healthier. They had a lot of receiver injuries last year. Those guys are back. I think they were down to a 7th-string running back at one point last year, and they're also acquiring transfers from the FBS level. So I think they're a bit more refined in the skill positions this year.
Steve, you mentioned Hunter Watson, a quarterback. Another name that I saw was Quavez Humphreys, who had a pretty good game as well against Rice. Who are some other names on offense that UCF fans need to familiarize themselves with?
Yeah, those are 2 of them. And then Ife Adeyi is one of the wide receivers. He's really fast, one of the fastest receivers in the CUSA. Missed most of last season due to an injury, but he had a really good bounce back game against Rice. That's one name that I'd look out for. And then the running back core, you have John Gentry, who was kind of their number one guy for most of last year. He returns to the running back room. And another one is Jay Ducker. Jay Ducker was a MAC freshman of the year, a 1,000-yard back on a 2021 Northern Illinois team that won the MAC. Then he transferred to Memphis, kind of split some carries there, but I think Ducker could really emerge as one of their top guys offensively. So I think that Sam Houston does pretty well at the skill positions. On offense, if there's one place I'm concerned, it's the O-line. I think they gave up 6 or 7 sacks to Rice last week. Rice was just feasting in that backfield. So if there's one area where UCF can really assert their will on Sam Houston's offense, it's their defensive line led by Lee Hunter against what Sam Houston brings up front.
How would you describe the defensive system that Sam Houston likes to run?
It's a system where I'd say they kind of like to funnel things to the linebackers, and the linebackers really take over. If you look at their tackle numbers, last year they had Trevor Williams, who was a Star USA linebacker. He was posting like 130, 140 tackles seasons throughout the time of Sam Houston. And then now they have Kavian Gaither, who's really stepped up in that role that Trevor Williams had. Gaither, when Williams was hurt 2 years ago, was the MVP of the conference Sam Houston played in the FCS. So Gaither is more than a capable replacement as that top linebacker. So it's kind of the D-line kind of funnels everything to the linebackers, and you'll see that reflected in the tackle stats. And then in this, not really the best pass rush. I think they finished second last in this USA in sacks last year, so that's something that they really need to get up more. But I thought the secondary did a decent job against Rice in the opening game. So there's one thing, if there's one area of concern, is what Sam Houston's secondary, Caleb Weaver's a name to watch there, what they can do against UCF's wide receivers and against the Knights in that passing game.
What does Sam Houston have to do to pull an upset?
They have to muck up this game, I think, cause a bunch of turnovers, and I think really limit UCF on the ground, force them into those third and short situations, which they weren't really doing too hot against New Hampshire with. I mean, we saw them settle for 2 field goals early on in that game, then a punt on the first 3 possessions. I think they had another punt after their first touchdown of the game. So if a sequence like that unfolds where Sam Houston can get some initial stops on first and second down on those running plays and force them into third down situations, then Sam Houston can kind of get some critical stops. And then if they can get some turnovers that are in advantageous position for their offense, then their offense can capitalize and score. I do think that UCF will win this game, but I think Sam Houston might present a bit more of a challenge than some fans might see going into this.
We saw you in Las Vegas at Big 12 Media Days. What'd you learn about the Big 12 after week 1?
Big 12, I'd say overall the conference looked pretty good. The losses were West Virginia and Houston. The Houston game was really bad for Houston, dropping 27-7 to UNLV at home. But other than that, and Texas Tech, which Texas Tech was a 2-point conversion away from losing, I thought the conference held its own for the most part and looked pretty good. I'd say the team that impressed me most was Arizona State. They've been a team that's been in the cellar the past few years in the Pac-12. So to see Kenny Dillingham's squad come out with a convincing 48-7 win over Wyoming when they were struggling to even put away FCS teams the past few years, that's a really promising sign for the Sun Devils. So I think that was my best impression that I got from them. And then also McMillan, his performance from Arizona, having 300 receiving yards, that was insane. So that was another thing that impressed me from the Big 12 in week 1. But it's going to be a deep league. Utah and Kansas State are the teams I currently have as my favorites, but it's going to be anyone can beat anyone for the most part, maybe exclude a team or two here and there. But I think it's going to be a dogfight every single week in this conference, even more so than it was last year.
Before we let you go, help me with our Big 12 pick'em, BYU and SMU. You like BYU's chances in this one?
The fact that SMU's played 2 games already, they've already faced an adverse situation against an improved Nevada team, makes me think that SMU, they're a little more up for the challenge. I think they have a lot of returning talent. I like the Mustangs at home in this one, but I have BYU covering that 11-point spread. Think it's going to be a really close finish. Looking forward to going that one tomorrow.
All right. You heard it from Steve. Steve, we appreciate you pulling off on the side of the road to talk to us for a few minutes. We wish you safe travels the rest of your journey and good coverage all weekend. Enjoy college football.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Always love being on Sons of UCF.
Thanks, Steve. All right. I'm glad he pulled over. We've had people driving before, right? We've had.
I was trying to think of this. I didn't have enough time. The top 5 car interviews we've done. We've had some good
That's
car
pretty
interviews.
clean. He had a good signal.
That was good. No, that was good. Mike and I
Yeah.
one time interviewed Mark Anthony Richards in the dark. So that was tough. I was trying to think
Allegedly,
of the top 5
we're not
car
sure it was
interviews.
him.
Yes, sounded like him. So yeah, I'll have to work on that list too. I always wonder what the playlist is too. What's he listening to in the drive? Is he a podcast guy, music guy? You know, how far is this drive? I need more details there. But we'll have Steve back on. Really knowledgeable kid. We saw him.
Did you message me in the private chat and say, "Hold on a second, I want to ask Steve about"?
I did not. No, I did
may
not.
have ignored it. I may not have.
No,
been looking.
did not at all. But Steve's a really good follow on Twitter at @S_Hellwick. He knows a lot about college football. To your point, Trace, we saw him out in Vegas. Really good kid, hard worker, and we're always glad to have him on the show.
Yes. All right, time for some news and notes.
I'm Herb Hand. Let's go around the kingdom.
How about Coach Lounsbury? I was talking to Coach Hand today. I love that.
He was. What do you want to do? He was talking to somebody. I mean, that's not a name drop.
Men's basketball releases its preseason schedule. 7 home games on that one, hosting, as we've learned earlier, Texas A&M November 4th, at Purdue November 8th. That's an interesting back-to-back against Wisconsin and either LSU or Pittsburgh in the Greenbrier Classic in West Virginia. So maybe we're a month or so away, I believe, about 6 weeks from Big 12 Media Days. So it's around the corner. I'm not quite there yet on basketball, but we now know that non-conference schedule. Volleyball gets
one
the
minor
win.
correction. Sorry,
Yes.
one minor correction. I think they're playing Purdue Fort Wayne, not the actual Purdue.
Oh, not Purdue.
Yes, I think it's Purdue Fort Wayne.
That is a slight
so,
difference.
I believe I read
I
that in
like
the press
you in the
release.
corrections role that
Thank
you
you.
play every week around the kingdom.
I'm here to keep everybody honest, Trace.
Yeah,
Integrity.
so that is important.
Integrity. It's what we're about.
I feel a little bit better about that. Volleyball off to a 3-0 start. They get the sweep at Stetson. They will play North Carolina Wilmington in DeLand this Saturday at 2:00. Women's soccer on right now, approaching the half over in Tampa against the Cows, who are donning their fluorescent green uniforms. Knights 2-0-2. They beat a top 20 ranked Georgia team 2-0 at the UCF Soccer Complex over the weekend. So right now, scoreless as they approach the first
Trace,
half. Rain delayed over in Tampa.
Can I tell a quick story here, Trace? Before this here program this evening, I took my lovely daughter Addison to her high school's college career fair, where all the colleges were there, so you can kind of go around getting paper, getting information. And we walked by the Cows table. I said, "You cannot stop." And as the lady looked at me, I flashed her the horns down.
Oh,
yes,
very good.
Yes,
very good. What is she considering as a major? Has she thought through that yet? What she wants to do?
Right now, we're doing the 2024 millennial thing. We want to do interior design. So right now, we're in interior design as a potential major, but check back in a couple of weeks.
How is UCF for that major?
Who knows? I will tell you this though. Like, I don't know if we don't have a very large platform, but if we do, I'll tell this. We went to the UCF table. The guy running it, kind of a jerk. Yeah, it wasn't very engaging, wasn't very friendly. It was kind of like, "What do you want to know?" And wasn't. And I said, "Hey, my wife and I were alumni here." And he said, "You know what? Hold on a second." Reached in his bag, gave me a sticker. I almost gave him something in return, Trace, but I decided to not do the night-on-night crime. But whoever was at the Nice High School table this evening, if you're listening from UCF, maybe a little friendliness would help some people. That's all I'm saying. As you were.
Interesting insight. Number 17, men's soccer. They had a 1-1 draw with Wake Forest. They play Friday against UC Irvine, 7:00 at the UCF Soccer Complex. We already know goalkeeper Juan V. Munoz out 6 to 8 weeks with a leg injury, torn ligaments, and forward Luca Dorado got hurt in that Wake Forest game, lower leg injury. I reached out to UCF to get an update. I was informed there was no update. So your guess is as good as mine about Luca Dorado going into Friday's game with UC Irvine. All right, I mentioned it earlier off the top of the show. This week's Around the Kingdom. Thanks, everyone, for watching, Eric Lopez and I. And I always look forward to the clip Adam chooses to show during Sons of UCF Live.
Oh, that's easy. That's Trace. I've been in the press box with Trace. I've been in the arena when it gets dicey. He is a wreck. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. Gives you this evil look. Like, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. Trace is just – I remember the Baylor game. I'm like, relax. And he's like, oh, leave me alone. Leave me alone. He's beside himself.
Wow.
I feel you've exaggerated slightly on this.
No, Andrew,
right
ask Andrew
now,
Jericho.
Yeah, let's update. Adam, you texted one
I
Andrew
did.
Jericho.
Andrew Jericho, yes. And we weren't able to get that in the show. Let me get his exact quote.
Yeah.
He said, sitting next to Trace is like sitting next to a guy in the movie theater who says ooh and ah in the gruesome scenes, but always a reaction. He's also the guy that will answer any question you have if you get confused or need to use the bathroom. So there you go.
It doesn't sound anything like Eric Lopez described. And who was happy about the Baylor game? Come on. Eric Lopez, stop.
Are you near the bathroom? Or are you just kind of like, hey, you want to go left? You want to go right? Like, what is your...
Well, one of us has got to be watching the game if one of us gets up. So there's a timing issue.
Are you always starting off? You go to like fancy hotels and there's a guy in the bathroom that hands you like towels and like, soaps and stuff. Like I'm always thrown off on like, yeah. I appreciate what you're doing, sir, but I got this. I've been doing this for a long time. I know what I'm doing here. I don't need assistance. I'm always thrown off by that.
Have you ever partaken of the, hand sanitizer, the gum, the mints, the cologne, the aqua velva, anything?
No, I'm an in and out kind of guy, Trace. I'm not trying to stay in there for a long time and make friends and chat anybody up. I know what I'm there for. We get it done. We get everything situated and we get back out to our duties. We're not hanging out making friends.
Can you flash Troy's comment? I just saw that. He said, I picked a strange time to check that.
He did. Well, you can say that pretty much any time of the show.
Troy, why did you leave?
Right. Well, yeah, great. Even better question.
It's just an hour. All right, is that time again for the minute open to the mailbag?
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
I'm too sexy for my shirt.
Yo!
Because I don't really like any of these guys. None of them are my guys.
Maybe a pony.
Giddy up.
Oh, hell yeah. I've been there too many times. I think you ought to take one of me out.
I'll work on it.
At UCF Nightingale, does anyone in Central Florida have a basement? If so, how? What's your experience with having a basement in the home?
Never in my entire life. I did some research, though. According to unitstorage.com, Florida is the state with the least number of basements in the United States of America.
Wait, less than Hawaii?
That's what it said.
Even when you lived in
pick it up with unitstorage.com.
A reputable source. Are there basements up in Northern California?
Probably somewhere. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I think on Full House, if I remember correctly, Joey and Uncle Jesse lived in the basement. So yeah, what was going on with those two, by the way? We really didn't. We didn't ask enough questions when we were watching that show as we were kids. Just
but can we just say that Billy Napier has not had a good week for all our hand wringing about KJ Jefferson and his rodeo at UCF? Billy Napier, this wasn't his first rodeo, and things did not go well.
And then he tried to open a water bottle. That doesn't get itself worked out.
Did you watch that, though? I mean,
I did.
He struggled. After the first twist and you couldn't get it, just set that water bottle down. We probably don't even notice.
Probably not. No, and it was Aquafina. That's terrible. Terrible.
That's Scott 88513. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the performance last week? I'm going to go 7. I hate to say 7. 57 to 450 plus rushing yards, but the anticipation over KJ Jefferson's debut, I knock it down a couple.
I said 8 because obviously the quarterback play was part of it too, but defense was great. Running back room was great. I don't think we saw enough of the receiving core, and by obvious reasons, special teams came up to play. So the only reason I gave it an 8 because it got out of control late in the game, and obviously we were playing second, third string guys. They were as well. So I don't know what we learned in that part, but I think the part where it kind of quote unquote counted, I'm gonna go with a solid 8 for you.
Michael at Emptiness 4. Great question. Let's assume KJ's quarterback play top concern in this one. What was concern number 2 on the list? I don't know.
I wrote 2 down.
I don't know if I have one. I don't know if I have one.
I wrote down off.
Maybe defensive line, just because I want to see some sacks.
Sure.
But I know Gus said that they got the ball out quickly, New Hampshire. So you heard Steve said 7 sacks Sam Houston gave up to Rice. So I'd like to see the Knights feast this coming weekend.
I wrote down offensive line. I think there were still some moments. Coach Lansbury talked about a couple of breakdowns and that group gelling together. I think if we want to have a great rushing attack, we're going to need the offensive line to really step up. And then Matt Dolan actually takes my next one. Kind of the kicking game. I'm not here to start stuff, but I'm not sure that Colton Boomer field goal actually went in. The one that
Gus said it was in.
I know he did. But I'm not so sure that one went in. So and they were a little bit too close to my comfort. So I would say offensive line, and I would say kicker. I did not write that. That must be Mike.
At McGuckin, that's hard to say. _
Yeah.
6. Y'all think Gus downplayed KJ's poor performance? I really feel like he thought it wasn't all that bad. Well, he's not going to throw his quarterback under the Gus bus. That's why
I heard
you used the different phrasing in the soundbite we used earlier. First rodeo veteran guy. Draw your own conclusions.
Well, I heard this week that Gus also has a part-time job now as a sports psychologist, as he was working with Colton Boomer. So perhaps there was some psychology involved in trying to prop up KJ when his performance maybe wasn't what we thought it was.
He's just going boom. Bump him up. That's all he's doing.
Is he Big Justice and AJ? Those two guys?
Yeah, I don't
Gus in on those guys.
I've seen a video or two of those guys. That's.
I think we've jumped the shark. I know I'm alone in this one, but when these two idiots are ripping this thing off, like at some point when you say boom, it's going to be these two guys. It's not going to be
Gus. Who said it first?
I mean, Gus is older, so I'm going to give him the nod on that one. But
our buddy Brian W. Peterson. Hey, Brian, let me know when you're getting to the stadium on Saturday. I'll meet you out there. KJ,
I'm not sure he's coming. Update. I'm not sure he's coming.
Whoa. Why not? What's going on?
I
KJ had a less than
for
successful week 1. What would you consider a successful week 2 performance? A question we spoke with Coach Lounsbury. I don't need to see 30 passes. I just want to see better quality passes, more downfield passes, just not the rust, or we're all going to be in a meltdown if it's a shaky performance in week 2.
I wrote down over 60% completion percentage, no turnovers, and at least 3 solid good downfield throws.
3. I'd like Kobe Hudson to be at the podium post game, which will have meant KJ had a good game. So put me down for that. Andrew _Cherico. We used this question around the kingdom. I stole it as our prop bet. Over under 19.5 pass attempts for KJ. Going with the over. Going to go with 24. 16 of 24. Puts you right about that 66, 67% mark.
I will go over as well.
At 2 letters, 2 words. It begins with 2-part question, part 1.
Yep.
KJ Jefferson didn't go live in fall or spring. Do you think that was purely a coach's choice to protect the quarterback from injury, or the result of a negotiated understanding as a part of a portal recruitment? We have no information to support the second part of that. I don't think you want your quarterback hurt. Who's going to go? No starting quarterback's going live, right?
No, I wouldn't think. And it's an interesting question. I wonder if we're getting to a spot, though, Trace, where as you're recruiting a guy from the portal, where stipulations like this will start to maybe creep into contracts. I hadn't never really thought of it that way. I'm going to say in this situation, I feel strongly that's probably not what happened here. But I wonder if it's in the future state, as part of, hey, you want me to come to school X? I'm not going to practice on this day, or I've got this, or I need this. I wonder if something like that will become part of standardized recruitment contracts.
And there was a part 2 to the question. It involved a poll. It is not included here because I have some editorial control, and I'm not including polls in questions. At Golden Knight _2. Did Gus pick the wrong quarterback to lead this team? I feel he hasn't done that well in this arena since he's been the head coach. Why do you say that, Thomas Castellano? Come on, Mikey Keene. There's quite a few guys in quite a few other places. Too soon for all of this. Too soon to say.
Well, I'm not sure. Is this question about from the portal, or is this question about between the current options available? Because if it's from the portal, you could certainly argue that. Now, we had our good friend JP Gilbert had SJ Tui on a space recently. They talked about the going rate and what UCF wanted to spend, and so there's certainly a financial obligation there. So if you're going to say, did he pick the right quarterback or the portal? I think it's a fair question. I just don't know what the going rate was for the quarterbacks between the two. They're there, to your point, probably too soon. But I think Ja'Cory Brown is still a young, developing quarterback. I don't know that he, showed a ton of stuff on Thursday that tells you that he's definitely the guy to take the reins right now.
You know what I like about the mailbag questions is it always gives you the pulse of the fan base, I feel, and whatever the hot pressing issues are of the week. At UCF Fan 642, 2 questions, no polls. Is it the quality of Gus's quarterback choices or his passing scheme? It seems to be a bit of an indictment question on Gus.
Look, I think when we've needed to get the ball downfield, we've done so in the past, right? So I think the scheme would allow for that, particularly when you have a solid running back play. I'm going to say it's been execution that's allowed us to not execute or get those chunk plays as we want. So I think the scheme is okay. I think Gus is a smart guy. He's got Darren Hinshaw. He's got Tim Harris. I think they can throw up a route tree and get some guy open downfield. Can we block it and can we throw it accurately? I think those have been the two questions that we haven't really ever answered or seen really solidly here at UCF.
The second question was, do you believe UCF's offense can come from behind to win in a close game fourth quarter with Gus's passing scheme? I think that's an interesting question too. Can they, if they're going to run the ball as much as they can, you're going to need to be able to pass, right? They find themselves in some dark fights. Maybe it's going to go to you. Yeah, maybe. It's too soon for me. I need to see more this weekend before I feel confident answering that question.
Yeah, the run sets up the pass, though, right? So if you can run it effectively, maybe you get some looks over the top.
At Tiger Picks _ UCF 21 at Hard Rock Bet. Does UCF cover go 2-0 against the spread? Yeah, I'm going to cover. Yeah.
My score is getting cut off there. It's 51-13 Knights.
Yeah, now where is it? Is it where the lanyard is, or is it
right
the
up here? It's you see the 51-13. I got to move the camera a little bit. I apologize, everybody.
At Nightfan 94, throwing in a hoops question: if team assists per game are a good metric for a team's offensive effectiveness, does JD buck his trend with the new talent this season? I sure hope so. He's listed their rank in this: 311, 332, 164, 170. Anyway, you get the idea. Not very good. 289 last year. Needs to be better.
I feel like this team has more. They have more playmakers on this roster, Trace, than we've probably had in years past. That doesn't necessarily always translate to assist turnover ratio. I don't know if we have shooters on this roster, which is important, but we definitely have more playmakers, guys who can be electric with the ball in their hands. I don't know if that pertains to additional assist ratio, though.
At Tan the Man, how confident are you about TCU 1 to 10? No fives. I think he knows me. I was probably a 5 guy. Too early. I feel better answering this question next week, but 6 because it's one of my predicted wins.
6 is also my answer. Yeah.
At 2 Z's, if Miami makes it to the playoffs, does the SEC or Big Ten want them? Anybody will take them. Anybody.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an arms race. If the ACC continues to fall apart, I mean, schools are going to be available, and Miami's a brand, and whether you like it or not, haven't really been great. But if they put up a winning record, they have a good academic ratio at that school. I imagine they'll get a phone call.
At Zeebles, UCF defense looked good in game 1. Also looked good against Kent State last year. When in the season can Ted Roof beat the Buddy Hire allegations? When you see UCF perform, as we have heard during camp, with a greater sense of urgency, and they get those turnovers. And I think it really comes down to winning a game that you might not expect them to and come from behind. Road game, maybe it all sets up to getting a decisive win on the road to TCU. And I will feel better about Ted Roof.
I'm going to say after Colorado, because we saw, if you saw the game this week, that's an offensive explosive team, right? Shadur Sanders, Jimmy Horn from obviously from Central Florida, Travis Hunter, they're going to put up points, Trey. So if we can shut that team down or kind of hold them in check offensively with this defense, then I will say, you know what? Way to go. Great job, Ted Roof. But if that's a 56-53 Eric Chenander special, then I'm not so sure I'm going to be in on the Ted Roof Buddy Hire accusations.
At Lonely Bee, UCF, after batting 1,000, the agenda, this is the J.P. Gilbert creation, has defended Curry's garbage time 3 in an exhibition match, called for ending boom cranes, hated the Orca black uniforms. Is the agenda washed? It's always been propaganda. It's always been a me guy, J.P. kind of moment.
Wow. I say it's just warming up, Trace. I think it's just warming up. I think he's just getting into form. You know, off season's here. Just like everybody's getting a little rust out after week 1. I think it's just warming up.
At M_M and UCF, did the FSU fan eat the dog good? I sure hope not.
I don't think so. I think I saw correctly on social media. He like closed his Twitter account. A fake account opened up and said it was him, but it really isn't him. So as of this reporting, Trace, exclusive to the Suns, I don't think he's ate anything from any cup or any feces of any kind.
Segue, foodie question at Dolly Drama. Each game has had a Big 12 Eats menu. New Hampshire was wild turkey leg. I'm not sure where the lobster roll fit into that. Sam used to steak, cowboy, caviar. He wants to know what the Trolco would be. I'll defer to you to answer that.
I learned something about Trace in our time in Las Vegas that I was not aware of. And it makes some sense. He does not eat any meal where he has to use his bare hands. He will not touch the food with his hands. So whatever this thing is, it's going to have to be fork and knifeable. I mean, I saw this man try to take down a pizza with a fork and knife. There was some talk about chicken wings. He was looking around the table. So
I don't eat chicken wings. I don't eat
know.
chicken wings because you can't eat them successfully with a fork.
Whatever it is, it has to be fork and knifeable. So I mean, that's the starting point. Maybe a good jambalaya. I don't really know, but I feel like no, jambalaya wouldn't work for you.
Now, but you're the one, correct me if I'm wrong, who eats each food group one at a time, right? You don't mix.
Yeah, I do like a little bit of order on my plate. Like, I don't understand why we have to be savages and throw everything in one big pile. Like, let's have some order in our life. I'm okay with that. Now, I'll take bites from each of those individually, but I'm not gonna, we're a civilized society, Trace. I don't eat everything on top of each other.
Yeah, we successfully dined while in Las Vegas. Things went well.
Did we? I don't know. Yeah, we had some moments. We waited a long time for that Gordon Ramsay burger place.
That's true. That's true. It was the most expensive burger I've ever had. Just successfully eaten with a fork and a knife. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. Chock full of them this week. And it is that time again with our
that's what's in the box.
End to the show. What is in the box?
And get you this promo code TEN1215. They have new stuff going on right now. They have new collections, all that stuff there. Go there. TEN1215 get you 15% off any non-sale purchase.
I feel like this segment is not appropriately called "What's in the Box." It feels like throw me a curveball. I'm still reeling from the Danny DeVito question of 2 weeks.
I don't know why. Yeah, that wouldn't seem out of control. Okay, here we go. This is a you have a question here, and there are two options. People who use the walkalator at the airport, are they efficient with their time or are they lazy?
The walkalator, you mean that
that thing where you walk on it and it like moves while you're walking, and you can either stand or you can walk with it. I don't know what you call it. The walkalator is what's here.
Walkalator. I never just stand on it. I have used it, but I don't find it to be a whole lot more efficient than just walking next to it. So if I don't, unless I'm in some sort of big rush, I just walk. So I don't always use it. So.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. People mover, good call, Dolly. That could be what it's called, the people mover.
Was your term an actual term?
Someone had told me it was a walkalator, kind of like an escalator where you escalate.
I've never heard
this one. You walkalate, I guess. Troy saw a person in a wheelchair today. That seems efficient. I don't really know.
I'll tell you what. I don't always catch all of the comments. It's probably better that I don't. But kudos to Troy for being lively tonight.
Yes, Troy's lively and a lot of different. There are a lot of rules in the walkalator too. Don't block the path and just stand there. If you're on this walkalator, you're a moving guy.
Oh, definitely moving. Yeah, I'm not just standing there. Yeah, I'm moving. I
ever try to walk backwards on it?
So,
ever try to walk backwards on it?
Probably at some point in my life, but not recently.
Okay,
I'll consider that.
The next walk. Can I get the next walk and talk from a walkalator? Can I get that?
I have done a walk and talk a timer. Yeah, I've done it. I'm running out of ideas. Okay.
Well, have you done it backwards?
Wants me to do it with the 69 boys or whatever the hell that group is. We're going to be there in a couple
Don't
weeks.
say that. Jesus, that's going to get clipped.
I try to help you. The group?
Yes, that is the name of the group. Well, I mean, I try to help you, Trace.
With them. What?
Yes, I try to help you.
Anyway, all right. I don't know what I did now. It's going to get clipped. It's going to be added to the mailbag.
I don't want to say because then I'm going to get clipped. But so I'm just going to let people let that resonate. I'm sure it's already in the comments from somebody.
Freeze the comments. What now? This is what. I want to thank Coach Lounsbury for being with us. Appreciate his insights. And Steve for pulling over on the side of the road to give us a little of information on Sam Houston. Are you here this weekend? Have you made a firm decision on whether you're joining us?
I will not. I will not be in attendance.
No Peterson either?
But to win this one without the two, there's only two people in the world, Trace, who have this shirt. Both myself and Brian. It looks like neither one of us will be there. Only two were made, Trace.
All right. Dolly, get in touch with me.
Dolly not going either.
What?
Dolly also not going. Yeah, he's busy.
Oh my God! I gotta find a whole.
He's got stuff to do. I mean, what do you want the kid to do? He's got a life. I mean, come on.
Isn't this what we gear our lives around 7 times a year? Oh goodness!
He's still watching the game. I mean, he's gonna be ready. I know he's got a setup going. He's got a family.
All right, send me your tailgate information, especially if you have Jello shots. And
oh boy, here we go.
By if I can, I'll be out there. So, thank you, everybody. Let's see the Knights go 2-0 against Sam Houston. For fanboy Adam Eaton, I'm Trace Strelko. Go Knights!
Fans of the pod.
This is Trent Whittemore. Thanks for watching Sons of UCF.
Trent Whittemore.
That's all
Married,
I got.
by the way, married guy.